double check that I'll be able to be heard as well.
Yeah, you are live. You're live now.
Oh, I'm live now.
You're live now.
Oh, I just wanted. Okay, can you hear me? Because I want to make sure.
No, you can hear it. But I've already checked.
No, I don't trust you after last time. So before I start properly, listeners, can you hear me speaking right now? Can you hear me?
They definitely can, Tom, because I checked it.
Well, I've not heard that they can hear me. I'm waiting for them to say Tom's on mute. Can you hear me? There's no one's responding. This is going to be the next hour. Me going. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. There we go.
Right, I can actually start the podcast now because I know Joe's not messed it up again. So, hello and welcome to the Snooker Loopy Podcast, live from the Crucible. And our next host, he's one of the best snooker players you've ever seen in video games. He's won many titles. He's won many fans. He's been loved by people on YouTube for about 9 years. He's the irreplaceable, irrepressible Joe. What's your middle name?
George.
Joe G. Hannah.
Good evening, Hazel. Good evening, everybody at home. As you can see, runs like clockwork, this podcast, doesn't it? We've only been doing it for 3 years, something like that. I guess since the Crucible chats all the way back in the day, and Tom still, thinking that he's muted and all of that, but I'd already sorted it all. And
well, because literally last week, or earlier this week, or whatever, I was muted, so that live streaming's still quite new for the Snooker Loopy Podcast. This is a fairly new endeavour for us. So.
It is a new endeavour, but well, the 2025 World Championship is no more. Booze.
I just want it back.
But yes, good evening to everybody. There's lots of people in the chat already. We will be sort of reading out your reactions. We're going to be giving our reaction to what's just happened in the world of snooker. Some of our thoughts. We've got a very special Cue the Laughter as well lined up for you. So it's going to be great. But shall we start, as we mean to go on, Tom? ZHAO XINTONG, World Champion 2025.
And I don't think anyone will say he doesn't deserve it. You would be very, very hard pressed to find a way to say he is not a worthy champion the way he's played. He's definitely been the best player throughout the tournament. And the only matches he really struggled in were the qualifiers, to be honest, which is a bit bizarre. But, the way he kind of dismantled Ronnie, then dismantled Mark Williams. I mean, people could argue, was Ronnie got problems with his cue, or was Mark a bit tired? But you could say that, but there's always going to be mitigating factors in any final. And at the end of the day, the reason that ZHAO XINTONG won those frames 7-1 and 8-0 is because he was clinical. He was really clinical. He wasn't knocking in century. But if you look at the number of breaks over 50, the number of, big breaks that are basically decent enough to win a frame, he did the job probably better than any player that I can remember in recent memory. It's very rare, I think, that player over a whole championship seems to just win it without breaking a sweat, but it's probably what people thought, during Hendry's dominance or Davis's dominance, in that you just went, oh, he's just not worried. He's just not bothered. He's just beating these players and he doesn't seem to be feeling the pressure. And I'd be amazed if it's his only world title and I'd be amazed if he doesn't get the Masters as well to complete the Triple Crown, because just such a solid player. And he deserved it. Well done to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it had weirdly had shades of 2013 Ronnie, actually. And very similar circumstances. He's played one professional match on TV this year, and that was the UK Championship against Sean Murphy 6-5. I think he went down in the UK Championship. He then came back for the Worlds, obviously. Ronnie very similar, sort of breezed through the 2013 World Championship after having a year out. Was ZHAO put under pressure? Perhaps not. I mean, the match against Lei Pei Fan was probably the closest he got to being under pressure. Obviously, Lei Pei Fan got it back to 12-10. I think it was 12-7 in that match, so he'd won 3 on the spin. And, I guess Ronnie won the first 2 of the evening when he'd went 12-4 down. There's been little spells where ZHAO's been under pressure, but he's always had in all of his matches that one big session that has took him almost out of reach. And I think that's been the key to him, because he won the first session 7-1. From that point on, Tom, it was 11-11.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People will say, again, like the match against Ronnie, it's just Mark Williams had one bad session, and like that gave XINTONG the match. Which, apart from that, as you say, I was thinking at one point after Willow won the second frame in the evening, I was like, well, he's won this session at least. No matter what happens, he's definitely won the 4th session. He can't lose that, because XINTONG can only get one frame.
Yeah, true.
Technically, Williams won 2 of the sessions. Do you know what I mean? He did a decent job. It was good to see Willow find his form, and he seemed to be really producing some of that sort of Welsh magic in the evening session, which I was delighted to see, because it wouldn't have been fair on him if he'd only got single-digit frames. I'm glad he mounted a comeback, but I do think, do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I think it is, I don't necessarily buy into the whole changing of the guard narrative and all that stuff, but I think it is just going to be the reality nowadays that we are going to see it more often with the class of 92, that they might not be the favourites anymore heading into big finals. A bit like, Steve Davis said a great bit of punditry. He mentioned his final against Ding in 2005 and said start of the World Championship final this year reminded him of that, and Mark Williams against XINTONG. And I do feel like, as there's all these players coming up who have real talent, I don't think this is going to be the first time we see a class of 92 player kind of struggle in a final. I mean, Higgins, of course, lost 18-8 to Trump. So do you know what I mean?
We've seen it before. We'll see it again. As much as the class of 92 have been hugely successful over the years, they have had shockers. Ronnie for the first time lost with a session to spare. The other 2 have felt that pain before. So, even the best players ever do get a hammer in sometimes, and Ronnie's had quite a few over the last couple of years. He's had a few 6-0s in there, hasn't he? Maybe defeats you wouldn't expect from him, but that's just a thing as you get older. You're not going to play well all the time, but also Ronnie won the UK Championship and Masters last year, and he looked on course for winning the Triple Crown in one season last year. So let's not get too carried away about changing of the guard and all of that. I think enjoy it while it lasts. Of the class of 92 still competing at the very top. They're going to be ranked 3, 4 and 5 next year. But also we've had 3 consecutive first-time world champions for the first time since 2000, 2001 and 2002, which of course was Mark Williams, Ronnie O'Sullivan, and then Peter Ebden. So, maybe Kyron Wilson and Luca Brissell and ZHAO XINTONG, are they going to be the new sort of trio of dominant figures, perhaps?
I mean, Wilson and XINTONG definitely. Brissell, it depends if he's focused on snooker or being an ultra marathon runner or whatever, to be honest. But, I mean, and also, I think we should say, XINTONG deserved it, but taking nothing away from Willow, because I agree with the comments from Colin in the chat. He was so gracious in his speech afterwards, and it was genuinely, as strange as it kind of feels to say, like the highlight of the championship for me was seeing Willow come out for that final session, and you can see how much it meant to him. There was a moment when he was just sort of looking around the Crucible, taking it all in, and I thought that was just so beautiful because
Yeah.
it was just the Sheffield audience saying, "We love you, and we've loved all the entertainment you've given us over the past 30 years," and you can see how much it meant to him, and it was beautiful to see that from Mark. And yeah, what he said in his interview was possibly the most gracious loser speech I've ever seen, and fully fully respect him for that. And no one can take away the fact that he's in a World Championship final 26 years after he was first in one, and no one else has ever done that. Very few players even have a professional career that's over 26 years. So for him to have done that is truly extraordinary, and it won't be the last time he's in a big final. You know,
Yeah,
I don't
but it could be the last time he's at the one table setup at the Crucible. You know, you never ever know with these things. There will be a last time at some point, and maybe that could be it for him and Ronnie. You never ever know. But I think it's been a very special championship with lots of memories. I don't necessarily subscribe to the narrative that XINTONG has been the story of the championship. I'm not entirely sure he has. I think he sort of went under the radar a little bit, kind of because Kyron Wilson got knocked out so early on. It meant that nobody really paid attention to ZHAO until the semi-final when he was playing Ronnie, because he obviously had the match against Jack Jones. I don't think people particularly would be watching that match over the one on the other side. He then had the match against Lei Pei Fan, which was, you know, an under-the-radar match in the second round. And then he, of course, played Chris Wakelin, and that was compared to Mark Williams and John Higgins, for instance, and you know, Judd Trump against Luca Brissell. It was an under the radar match, so XINTONG all of a sudden became a big player in that semi final, and probably in that session where he beat Ronnie 8-0, and that's really where the whole tournament changed for him. But it's been an amazing championship, lots of memories from it, things that we won't forget, I'm sure. And yeah, already looking forward to 2026, Tom.
Yeah, it'll be a cracker, as they always say. We have had someone in the comments say, "Do you think that XINTONG's punishment was lenient?" I mean, it's interesting because it was more harsh than John Higgins got. So do you know what I mean?
I guess
there are always different cases. There's different examples. There's different situations. I think all you can say is that if that's what the World Billiards and Snooker Association have decided, then that's what they've decided. And we can't really say what they should or shouldn't do because they've got their situations. And I always feel like I will forgive XINTONG quicker than I'll forgive Bingtao, because Bingtao did fix the match. And I'm still very dubious about Bingtao losing the ranking final 9-0, frankly, that no one's looked into it. But I'm like,
yeah.
Considering what we've learned after that, I'm still a bit like, okay. Do you know what I mean? It's still a bit iffy for me. So I think people will maybe not forgive Bingtao as quickly. But XINTONG, we've said it feels a bit early for him to be back in it. Ideally, I'd like him to have won it next year. But you just can't argue about how well he's played on the table at the end of the day. So.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Tom, because we did have a little bit of Fan Zheng email from Kiabats, who got in touch, and or John is his real name, John Griffiths. I mean, just like Terry there, coming through. He said, "Hi guys, in the live chat the other night, it said that winning the World Championship would be redemption for ZHAO XINTONG. You said it's too soon. I'm not sure what you meant by that. Could you please explain?" XINTONG pleaded guilty, served his suspension, paid his fine, has shown remorse. What difference would 1 year back playing snooker before winning the World Championship make? And I think ultimately where we both sort of have sort of reservations about this is that I reckon XINTONG would have got back into the top 16 probably by the time of next year's World Championship, regardless of what happened this year. Maybe he should have sort of worked his way back up to that. I know he obviously played on the Q Tour this season, and that's the sort of awkward situation, isn't it? Is that he technically did earn his way back in, but it feels a little bit not like a cheat's way of doing it, but it's like it's like, you know, if Ronnie went and played on the Q Tour, he'd probably dominate it. It feels, when you're a ranking event winner, should that be your route back on, or should he have had to go to Q School this year to get back on the tour next year? You know, is that something to look at? Should rank, or at least Triple Crown winners, should they be allowed on the Q Tour?
I mean, it does feel a bit absurd when they're all going, "Oh, he's an amateur, the first amateur," and he's not. He won the UK Championship. He's won a Triple Crown event. He's played. He's been in the top 16. He's played at the Masters. He's not an amateur. He was ranked 6th in the world. It's not like well, even James Cahill was a professional before he qualified. But I don't think. I just think it just feels weird, because if Ronnie dropped off the tour and it came back 4 years later and qualified, you wouldn't go, "Oh, he's the 4th amateur to qualify." You wouldn't say that, because it's Ronnie. So why? Are they going, "Oh, he's just he's not an amateur"? He made about 3 147s on the Q Tour. It just feels a bit absurd for them to to spin that as part of the story. And I just think it would be much cleaner and satisfying if it was just, "Oh, he's in the top 16 and he's won it," because the whole he was an amateur thing
it just felt a little bit off. It sort of robs a future story of an amateur coming through the ranks and achieving that.
Well, do you know what? I think the first time, I don't think any amateur has qualified. I know technically James Cahill, Michael White, XINTONG were all amateur players at the time, but they're all former pros. For me, the first amateur to qualify would be if, Jason Tart was in the qualifiers and managed to get through, had never been pro, and that's how he turns pro. For me, that would be the first amateur. So I still don't count it as, "Oh, amateurs have done well." It's just like, no, someone's dropped off the tour, but they're still probably in the top 130 in the world, even if they've dropped off tour. So it doesn't, I don't count them as amateurs in the same way.
Yeah, I think also we have to talk about what ZHAO actually did. He placed some bets on matches for other players. He wasn't explicitly involved in the match fixing, so to speak. So, when we talk about leniency of punishment, I think that's suitable. It was certainly, as you say, harsher than the likes of Jamie Jones got a suspension for it. I think Stu Bingham served a suspension for betting, didn't he? At some
he was only ever betting on himself to win, I think, which is the really funny part of it for me. That
But it's a very similar situation, I guess, sort of overshadowed by what others were doing at the same time. And I guess he's sort of lumped in with that same group. And I guess that's maybe where some of the misconceptions lie. When you compare him to somebody like Stephen Lee, completely different kettle of fish, really. Same with Mark King, players that have been suspended for actually match fixing. So but what's done is done. XINTONG has had an amazing tournament, and at the end of the day, thoroughly deserves his victory. And I don't think, I don't think anybody can take that away from him.
Yeah, and I think it is important to, as you say, specify he didn't actually fix a match, because I think a lot of the time when players get banned, people do jump to that. Like I've seen on different forums or Reddit or whatever, people going, "Oh, Stuart Bingham fixed a match," or even saying John Higgins fixed a match. It's like, no, I mean, Bingham match fixing wasn't even in that arena. He just bet on matches, which you shouldn't do. Higgins didn't actually fix one. It was just a video about quite a dodgy sting from News of the World. If you look up the News of the World's history and the fact that they basically went out of business because they were sued by celebrities for printing lies, it maybe makes you go, yeah, maybe we should relook at that and maybe forgive Higgins, because I think
I
he
think what
wasn't
was
as guilty as
particularly
people jumped on.
awful with the Higgins one was that it was released the day after Steve Davis beat him at the World Championship, which of course was a seismic shock. It was an absolutely seismic shock. Steve Davis played incredibly well in that tournament, and I almost feel like that match isn't celebrated enough because of what happened the next day, and that is such a shame, really. But you know, there's lots of ways people will discuss about it. Everybody will have their own opinion on it. At the end of the day, ZHAO XINTONG is 2025 World Snooker Champion, and he's got the same number of world titles as Judd Trump, which, you know, I'm sure will please all of the Judd Trump fans out there. Couple of things, Tom. We've had a lot of messages in here in the chat already tonight. It's thank you very much for all of your support so far. We've got nearly 50 viewers actually watching us live at the moment. Wow. So thank you very much for joining us on at the end of this World Championship. It has been amazing. I am reading all of your comments. Thanks for all the discussion in there. Lots of people talking about perhaps not being sad that the class of 92 are retiring. I would say be careful what you wish for there.
They're not retiring.
Well, no, but if they were to retire...
Who's got exclusive news here? They're all going to retire immediately.
We've also got a theory in there, Tom, from Albion My Way. The more I see that 85 final, the more I wonder if it was scripted to publicise the game. Davis went to pieces. I mean, that's an interesting interpretation of it.
That is not a conspiracy theory I'm going to get behind. Sometimes sport is just magical, and you have to let yourself in the moment and believe it. Because, you know, snooker was always very big before that, and it would have been big without that final, to be honest. You know, I think it still would have had the record viewing figures and all that stuff. Without the result, it's just that result made it a more magical ending. But that is just sport, and that's the beauty of sport. And
yeah.
I don't think Dennis Taylor's a good enough actor, to be honest.
No, I mean they had a lovely little feature on it today. Lots of people actually were being really miserable on Twitter, saying, "Oh, I can't believe they're harping on about the 1985 final. It's the 40th anniversary. That is why they're talking about it so much this year, is because it was 40 years. I actually think it was a big shame. I don't know if you noticed, Tom, but Dennis Taylor wasn't on comms at all tonight. He obviously was in the afternoon. They usually change the commentators every 4 frames. He was on this afternoon, as was John Virgo. John Virgo was in both times tonight, which was very interesting. Stephen Hendry wasn't on the comms all day or in the studio, so that was really strange that he wasn't about. I wonder if he's ill or something. But I don't know if you've seen that there was a bit of a spat between Sean Murphy and Dennis Taylor.
Hendry's either ill or he's dressed up as a dustbin again and he's getting ready to go on tour. It's one of the two.
Well be.
What was the Sean Murphy Dennis Taylor spat?
So at one point, Dennis was saying, I think it was about 15-8 at the time. ZHAO was clearing up to go 16-8, and Dennis goes, "Oh, I've had a few people from friends from across the world that have got in touch saying that they've not seen ZHAO XINTONG play before, and they're just mesmerised at how good he is." And then Sean Murphy went, "Well, I think they must be pretty new to snooker because this is the former UK champion that we're watching here." And then Dennis says, "Well, yeah, as I said, they're not from the UK." So, and then there was just silence, and it was really awkward. But Dennis was never seen after that.
Sean Murphy used his magic powers to just kill Dennis Taylor. Oh my god!
Yeah, it just.
Oh. But yeah,
crazy.
It was a weird moment. I think it was a bit, you know. Dennis is just doing his usual whimsical thing, and Murphy's there going, "Well, I think they're not snooker fans." It's like,
yeah.
all right, Sean, it's fine.
Well,
it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of stick for JV and Dennis throughout the tournament. We're obviously big fans of both, and we want them to stay. And I think again, it's a case of careful what you wish for, because you know, if they go. Ultimately, BBC is the most viewed snooker platform. You need to have some engagement with that and some entertaining commentary. And yes, they might not be the most knowledgeable on 128 players on tour, but I don't think they need to be, really, because 9 times out of 10 they're going to be commentating on somebody that's won world titles before. So there is rare occurrences when you get players that they've not watched play before, and it is a little bit awkward. But just a quick one. Go on, Tom.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine, even if I remember John Parrott a few years ago would go, "Oh, I've not seen this player before," and people would get angry. And I get why you'd get annoyed at him, but part of me does feel like, yeah, but he is just basically representing a lot of the viewers. There are people who will only watch snooker for the World Championships. You know, some people watch all the Triple Crowns, but other people, it would just be the World Championships. So they might not know who XINTONG is. They might not know who Wait Tin is. If they've not watched the UK Championship, why would they know who these players are? So I think it's a fair comment, you know.
Well, at the end of the day, XINTONG, in terms of World Championship performance, he'd only ever got to the last 16 before. So it's, you know, if you are a fairly casual fan of snooker and maybe only watch the World Championship, as you say, he could be a player that you're only coming across for the first time. But yeah, you know, people have their fans. By the way, if you are new around here, do make sure that you click subscribe. We have very regular comedy snooker podcasts. We're a bit of a niche around here, aren't we, Tom? We like to have a bit of a look on the lighter side of snooker. We do daily roundups of the World Championship as well, and hopefully you'll enjoy your stay. We're closing in on 500 subscribers, Tom, which is absolutely fantastic, and the next step of our journey, I guess.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone who's joined the party, including Chris Lang, who said he's just found it. Suitable post-Crucible therapy. Lovely to have you along, Chris.
Yeah.
And Chris Reed says, don't know if you saw it, but in the Crucible 40 Years programme they showed on BBC Two, they had a snippet of Joe Johnson singing Everlasting Love. No other snooker podcast will someone write in and tell them that. That's what you're getting on this podcast.
That's what you're getting around here. But also,
people who
Tom,
see Joe Johnson singing and go, "Oh, I got to tell Joe and Tom. They have to know this."
we're 2 years away from 50 years at the Crucible, and they're still repeating something from 2017. It's a bit of a shame, I think, that they keep showing that. It's a great program. If you haven't watched it, look it up on the iPlayer. It is fantastic, but it is getting a bit old now. It's 8 years old. You know, we'll nearly be doing the 10-year anniversary of that program soon. So it is just quite funny, isn't it? But
You're saying that.
We've got Big Bill Werbeneck in the chat as well. You know, people talking about Big Bill Werbeneck.
Beautiful, and he's 40 pints a day, apparently they're saying, which is probably about right, actually. But yeah, I mean, if you want to see something even older on the BBC iPlayer, they've got the whole 1985 final frame on there, which is on the iPlayer, which is bizarre to go. You can actually watch it as a catch up on iPlayer. Like if 10 million people watched that, would that mean that now 28 million people have seen that moment? Would that be counted as the viewing figures now that it's on a broadcast platform?
I guess so. Yeah.
If we all go watch it again, and then they'll have to go, "Oh my god, I can't believe millions of people have actually watched this."
Well, I don't know if you remember, Tom, but during 2020, obviously when the championships were cancelled, or at least postponed, during the 17 days that they'd normally have, they would have a Crucible Classic. I remember all of those being on there. I wish all of them were on the iPlayer, because they were fantastic programs, and it just goes with these things, Tom. And we always say the BBC makes some fantastic VTs and little features, silly features, and we just wish that they would put them somewhere. So that's also something that we try and do on the channel. I have recorded a couple of little silly snippets from the BBC throughout the championships that we're going to put on the channel, but. Yeah, you know, I thought it was really, really good. Throughout the championship, their coverage was brilliant. And I think BBC really have to step up now, because obviously TNT taking over. It's priced out a lot of people from watching, 75% of the tournaments. So now ITV and BBC have to step up and really take snooker to the next level now.
Wow, and Channel 5 with the 900. Let's not forget.
And the seniors. And the seniors
on telly, isn't it? The seniors is on Channel 5, right?
I think it's on Channel 5. Yeah.
Amazing. Everyone watch that because we need it to get massive viewing figures, so it continues on TV. I just find it hilarious. It's on TV. Like,
yeah. Well, but it's good, isn't it? It's great to see all those players, and it is nostalgic. And in 10 years, maybe we will see Ronnie, John, and Mark battling it out in the seniors. That would be pretty good, wouldn't it? But they can be in it from next year, apparently, with the new rules. But we'll see, I suppose. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, I can't wait for Rob Walker to shake one of their hands and go, how does it feel to be the first person to be world champion and world seniors champion in the same year? As if they're going to give a damn. But he'll ask them that and they'll have to pretend to really care about winning the senior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Rob, this is the one that means the most to me.
But, bringing it back to the World Championship final, obviously we're reacting to that today. We will have a full review of the World Championship up in a few days as well. It's always a bumper episode, that one, where we'll take it all the way from the pre-qualifiers up to the final. We'll look at our predictions, which I'm sure Tom has won, but...
Thank you, Mark.
We'll see. But obviously you had that moment at the end where... Mark was coming back at ZHAO. He won the first 4 frames tonight. The crowd were really behind him, and then he missed a pot with the rest, and then ZHAO did the rest. He cleaned up. How did you feel about the sort of reception ZHAO got as he potted the winning ball? Do you feel it was a little bit flat? That's certainly how I perceived it.
Well, I feel it was. I don't necessarily think that's a reflection upon ZHAO. I think it's just the fact they wanted more of a match. I think it's probably just them going, oh, we wanted more of a comeback. We wanted more drama. Whereas, it felt a bit like, I don't know, like when Man City win the Premier League title and you just go, well, yeah, of course. Do you know what I mean? It's not as exciting. It's not as people jumping up and down. You're like, well, yes. Or even when Liverpool won it this year, you went, well, yeah, we've known that for about 6 months. They were going to win it. So it felt a bit like one of those where it was...
could be.
It was a bit flat also because there was no real emotion from ZHAO either. There was no moment of him sort of going like, yeah, or come on, or there was nothing like that. So it just felt like he was winning any other frame, which is partly his great temperament, but... I didn't
actually notice that at the time. That's a really good analysis of it.
Well, but as a fan of sporting stories, I always like it when players are a bit more emotional. I kind of...
Giving it the big Murph 360 and all of that.
Something like that, or even just like looking up at the sky, or do you know what I mean? Something that acknowledges the weight of your achievement. Because I think if you're just treating it like a practice frame, which is good for his mentality, and he obviously wanted to clear the table, but... I don't know. It would have been nice to have a little bit of emotion, a bit of something there.
No, I think you're spot on with that. But I noticed it was sort of a little bit flat. Obviously, everybody was behind Mark Williams. But yeah, it was a little bit strange, just how it all transpired. But then there was a lovely moment where he got the Chinese flag and he wrapped it around him, shades of Neil Robertson in 2010 with the Australian flag. And I just really want that to become a thing from now on. I want next year when Jimmy White finally wins it, for him to get the England flag wrapped around him. Or maybe Igor Figueiredo, when he wins the seniors, he's going to have the Brazilian flag just wrapped around him.
That would be brilliant. It could go full F1 and play like the national anthem, or for Jimmy White, they'll just play Minted over as he's celebrating.
Yeah. That would be brilliant. But it was fantastic. Obviously, Hazel's interviews. There's nobody better than Hazel, in my opinion, in those situations. I was glad it wasn't Rob, decapitating ZHAO XINTONG. But what I particularly found funny was Rob introduced the presentation party. He was like, please give a warm welcome to this guy from Halo and the chairman of the WST. Absolute silence from the crowd as they walk out. That was funny. But then ZHAO, lifting up the trophy, I always get a little bit worried that they're going to drop it because it's nearly 100 years old, that trophy now. Only a couple of years away from that, the centenary tournament.
No one dropped it so far. I'm quite surprised that Hurricane Higgins didn't drop it at some point, or there must be some dents in it, some little scratches on the bottom of it somewhere where someone's accidentally knocked it somewhere. I think.
There's been plenty of kisses, hasn't there, on the trophy? From Dennis Taylor kissing the little lady to.
I don't want to think about that. No. No, I'm thinking that ZHAO has technically tonight kissed Alex Higgins, Dennis Taylor, Steve Davis, Stephen Hendry, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Graham Dott, Peter Ebdon. But you don't want to kiss most of them people.
I would suspect all of them. But Niall's finally come out with a question that I think is on everybody's lips, and I guess we'll sort of finish our chat about the final with this. Will ZHAO break the curse next season? Now, which curse are you talking about? Is it the Tour Championship curse? Is it the Ding curse? Is it the Crucible curse? We're going to assume he means the Crucible curse.
I mean, we said Kyron had a great chance, and that kind of slapped us in the face.
I think if Kyron got through that first round, I think he would have won it. That's my call of the night. I genuinely do think he would have won it.
Well, I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know. We can all say this after we've lost the prediction contest, Joe. We can all you can all play this game going, I think if this happened, I would have won. Yeah, all right, mate. Fair enough. Yeah. And I think if Mark Selby was having 5 pints during every match, he would have knocked it a 147 every frame. We can all say, you know what I mean. So
all right, Tom. All right.
As for the curse, I'm going to say no. I don't think it's ever going to get beaten, and I don't want it to get beaten.
Here's my next question. Will ZHAO XINTONG do as well or better than Kyron Wilson as world champion throughout the season?
I mean, I'm pretty confident he'll get at least a couple of ranking titles. He'll have to be a big favourite for the Masters when it comes around, trying to complete his triple crown. So I fancy him to get a couple of titles. Yeah. How do you feel about both those questions, Joe?
I mean, I think it will take him a little while to adjust. I think there's going to be a lot of expectation on him to just keep going from strength to strength. I think people maybe see him as the new kid on the block. Funnily enough, he's the youngest world champion since Sean Murphy, even though he's 28. Isn't that a crazy statistic?
I always feel when XINTONG and Bingtao both got suspended, part of me did think they could have been the youngest in ages, because both of them. Bingtao's still only about 24 or something, isn't he? So do you know what I mean? They both could have really broken that record even more if they're on the scene. But youngest since Murphy seems crazy to me. That is pretty bizarre. I mean, there's been very few world champions in their 20s over the past 20 years. Which considering Davis and Hendry would have been in their 20s when they were all, Steve very late 20s into his 30s, but I mean, Dennis was 36 when he won the world title, and I feel like you would think Dennis is a bit of an older world champion for some reason. But yeah, not much older than what ZHAO is now. He's 28. But in answer to your question, Tom, I think ZHAO will struggle actually. Not as much as Brassel. He's not going to fall off the tour in 2 years, but I just fancy that he's going to be a bit of a target. He's maybe hit a bit of a sweet spot with his relaxation and just being able to play. I think he might struggle a little bit. I think he'll win at least 1 or 2 tournaments. But yeah, I'd fancy him for a first round exit this time next year. Okay, well that's our. I'm going to remind you of that this time next year when we're doing our predictions. Joe
When I'm
has already.
saying ZHAO's going to break the curse because he's won every tournament this season.
No, Joe's already put his first prediction out there. He's put it out there. It's going to happen. So that's a very early prediction for Joe. Predicting one that's 11 months in advance, but that's fine, mate. That's fine. Steve Porter says Dennis looked about 50, which is impressive.
Yeah.
Albin my way. Hendry had 7 by 30. Yeah, I mean, but then he won nothing after that. That's the thing. That's the thing with Hendry. Do you know what I mean? He did win them all very young, but there's a reason he describes Willow as his hero, and it's because he probably looks at the fact that the gap between Willow's first and most recent World Championship final is the same length as Hendry's professional career, which he's probably a bit envious of that and a bit jealous of, at the very least, the longevity, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Few questions in there, Nalkin. Once you hit 1,000, is the channel going to be monetized and do memberships once that bridge is crossed? I think actually the channel can be monetized after 500 subscribers because we've got so many watch hours and things.
Everyone, go get your friends, get them in. Come on, me and Joe need to get paid for this.
We joke. I think
I don't. Wait, what?
Tom doesn't. I think we will probably have memberships and that sort of thing.
My little money box here.
Different logos for people in the chat. I think that would be cool.
Empty. Nothing in my money box. So do you know what I mean? Like, get subscribing.
Matt has a very interesting question. On Hendry, do you guys believe he would have won 1 or 2 more if he hadn't retired in 2012? I reckon he could have won 1 more and regrets his early retirement. Intrigued to hear your thoughts. I don't think he would have won the World Championship, to be honest. I'd be very surprised if he was able to do that. Just because Ronnie then had a bit of a spell of dominance. Selby had a bit of a spell of dominance. Maybe he could have snuck 2015, but I don't think so.
Well, with Hendry, the issue was he didn't want to change. As Mr. Dog has just said, he didn't want to change his way of playing. But that's kind of how Willow rediscovered his form. He kind of changed his coaching and stuff like that. Ronnie has also been much more fluid in different coaches and different styles, and Hendry didn't want to change that. If he did, who knows now, to be honest, but I don't think he would have won another World. I think he maybe could have got to another quarterfinal, maybe a semi.
Yeah.
I think he could have probably won more ranking titles, but he didn't like being ranked out the top 16, and he walked away. And you just kind of go, Matt, that's what he did. And
I think he would have won another ranking tournament, probably.
Shootout.
No, he wouldn't have won a shootout. He could have easily won another tournament. I think the matches being shorter would have suited him. But yeah, we will never know. He probably would have had another couple of quarterfinals or maybe another semi-final at the Crucible. But you've got to remember, Alan McManus got to the semi-final of the World Championship in 2016. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's certainly an interesting question, but as we say, we'll never know, will we? Did you see the reports in the Sun that ITV4 might lose snooker and darts, but even if they keep the rights, that Matchroom will be in charge of production, so the commentators and pundits might be gone? Well, Tom Lewis had said this yesterday, Tom, didn't he? He's always one for a rumour. I don't know whether that's true. I can't see them changing the production of it. I think ITV is reasonably successful and popular, so I can't see them doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we can't say. If me and Joe knew, we'd be able to tell you, but we don't know. I hope they don't. I quite like the ITV production, even though I don't really... I don't think they do much radically different from what Eurosport did, really, in terms of their they get Foldsy in, don't they? And they get a few sort of regular names who you would see on Eurosport. So
yeah,
And to be honest, there's very little they can change with Matchroom. I don't think Matchroom are going to take over and go, right, now it's going to be hosted by Ian Wright and Ali McCoist. They're not going to do that.
Yeah. Matt saying, what do you think the score will be in the final next year when Jimmy White finally wins the world title? He's been flying in practice. Well, I mean, I heard that line as well, Matt. I think, he's going to give it 2 more years with his new tour card. If it's not next year, it'll be the year after. And I think he's going to win quite comfortably, about 18-13 versus Ken Doherty in the final, is what I've heard. We've got Fionn Lynch subscribing from many different accounts, Tom. He's like a scalper for the World Championship tickets here, isn't he?
Why has he got so many accounts? I can't believe it. But I think Jimmy might win if he just stops getting his tour cards and becomes an amateur. He needs to do the XINTONG tactic.
Well,
he needs to...
quite clearly, yeah, get himself on the queue tour. But should we do a bit of Fanzheng email, Tom?
Yes.
We had a wonderful email from Matt from Middlesbrough, and we were joking with him the other day, Tom, because of course his beloved Borough didn't qualify for the playoffs. We were talking about massages from Michael Carrick and all of that. But anyway, he's got in touch. He says, "Good evening, Hazel. Good evening, everybody at home. I'm finally over the semi-final session watching Ronnie and Borough not making the playoffs after having a wonderful full-body massage from Michael Carrick and a lovely touch-up with Mark Williams' ball cleaner. Now my body feels relaxed and my balls are nice and clean. How did you guys feel when seeing XINTONG win the World Championship?"
I mean, Joe, can I just straight away say I'm so glad that we are doing this stream after 11 p.m. because my God,
it's Snooker Extra, this, isn't it? We've kind of already talked about XINTONG. I can understand why a large portion of the crowd cheered Mark Williams down to his legend in the game and fans wanting to see more of a match, but did it also feel slightly tainted? The cheers when XINTONG was clearing the table, even the post-match celebrations just felt like something wasn't quite the same. Yeah, we talked about that. Whether it was his suspension or otherwise, how did you feel and how did you read the room? Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. I think we echo exactly your thoughts. It felt a little bit off, rightly or wrongly. That's the way it was, unfortunately. So I don't know what you got any more thoughts on that, Tom?
Well, no, I just think I think more than anything else, it was just a case of them wanting more frames because they wanted to see more of a match and they were wanting to see a bit more drama, and it did feel a bit like a procession in that final frame and. You're kind of expecting ZHAO to at least slip up once when he's sort of clearing up to make it exciting. And when he didn't, you just kind of go, oh, yeah, well, we all kind of thought that was going to happen. And I think it's partly because, that they're probably because I reckon a lot of them would have wanted Willow to, have a better chance because most people probably... at the Crucible have if you're at the final, you might have been there before, you might have seen Willow before, or maybe you just want to see him get into it a bit more, and they would have enjoyed him coming back. So it was just a bit of a shame, really. But I will read these to you, Joe. I did get my usual WhatsApps from my grandpa throughout the Snooker World Championship. My grandpa's the only other Middlesbrough fan who gets in touch with the podcast, so there we go. And
he's possibly the only other Middlesbrough fan in the world, Tom.
They're the two. Him and Matt just sat at the stage and cheering them on. I'd love that. I'd absolutely love that. But I said to him, how great has the snooker been? And he goes, "Thanks for your text, Thomas. I've been riveted all week. I think it'll be he thought it was going to be a Judd and Ronnie final. But then he said he wanted Mark Williams to get to the final. And then he was really happy when Williams got to the final. And he said, I've always favoured Williams and I'd really like him to win. But the Chinese boy, he's playing so well and has done all tournament, so I wouldn't be disappointed if he won. And after the final, he said, I said it was a cracking final. And he said, it certainly was, Thomas. All credit to the young pretender, the future of snooker. Mark was generous in his praise of him, which I thought was nice. So there we go. Isn't that lovely? My 94-year-old grandpa, he enjoyed the final.
This young Chinese player.
Genuinely, I think he sounds like Dennis Taylor in his WhatsApp.
Thanks to Tom's granddad for that. That's awesome. One more little question before we get into our special Q the Laughter. Would you accept paying a PPV or pay-per-view for the finals if it allowed it to stay at the Crucible? So lots of people are talking about WST playing, and will WST move things onto that platform instead of having it on the BBC or whatever?
Well, I mean, if you already pay for a TV license, you're effectively already paying to watch it through that, which should fund it to be at the Crucible if that's what the BBC wants it to be. I think the BBC have, for all the bad rep they get from some people who are idiots, frankly, they have put millions into snooker over the decades, and they're a big reason why it became so big in the first place. So I do feel like, if you're still buying a TV license and it's still on the BBC, that should be enough for it to stay at the Crucible. I think if it went behind a paywall and it was at the Crucible, that would just be the death of the game in the UK, frankly. Especially because we know that Europe and China would probably still get it for free. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think that would be a disaster if it went behind a paywall.
Yeah. I think actually as snooker fans we don't realise how good we get it. We have so much on terrestrial TV. We have the ability to watch every ball of every Triple Crown event, as well as many other events throughout the season as well. Whereas football is very much behind a paywall. Cricket is almost completely behind a paywall. Formula One is completely behind a paywall. Actually, we've had it so good for so long. And I think we need to really appreciate that, not take it for granted. And really appreciate the production value. How many other sports have such their absolute biggest names as the pundit? Steve Davis, Stephen Hendry, John Parrott is a world champion. Ken Doherty is a world champion. Sean Murphy's a world champion. On the TNT side, Ronnie, Jimmy White, these are some of the absolute biggest names that the sport has ever had, and they're working on the sport and the sort of TV production. You don't really get that with any other sport, do you? It's really special what we have, and I think we need to appreciate it.
I mean, match of the day, you get Gary Lineker, who of course is an England legend, but sometimes he's chatting to like Nicky Barmby or someone, so it's not quite the same.
Yeah, sometimes you have Alan Shearer and Ian Wright, or you have I don't know who are the other good players that they have.
What, Alex Scott?
Alex Scott, yeah. But you do also have Danny Murphy on there, or you have Nick Barmby, as you say. It's also, just quite funny,
I think we should also, also say that when I was a kid growing up, the cricket was on terrestrial TV. The Formula One was on terrestrial TV. I think I've watched the F1 on both BBC and ITV growing up, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's what first introduced me to F1 and made me a big fan of it, and I really enjoy it. I still follow the F1, I follow the results, but I probably watch about 20% of the races I used to because I don't have the channel it's on. And that'll be the reality if any sport moves, is that people, even if you already love it and enjoy it, no one can afford to have all these different licenses to pay so many different sports. Because if you're someone like Joe, and if you wanted to watch the F1, watch the cricket, watch the football, watch the snooker, do you know what I mean? It would put a real strain on his upcoming marriage. I'm just going to say that because Rachel would be going.
I don't
quid a month.
I don't subscribe to TNT as much as I'd like to. I don't. It's an extra 35 quid. It would increase my TV bill by 25% to do that. doesn't seem to make sense to me. So Steve Porter says, what's wrong with Danny Murphy? My point being that Danny Murphy isn't a Ballon d'Or winner, or Golden
Not
Boot
yet.
winner, or not yet,
Joe.
or England captain, or whatever. When the people we have as pundits on the BBC are the best of the best, the most famous names of the sport. So that was kind of my point with that. But anyway, Tom, shall we do our regular segment, Cue the Laughter?
Just before that, Joe, one comment from Matt in the chat. Tom's granddad has great taste in football, unlike Joe. Thank you.
I saw that.
I fully agree.
I saw that. I didn't appreciate it, though. So, long-time listeners of the podcast, Tom, will remember that for our Christmas special, we did have some Christmas presents in our Fanzeng email, one of which was from Alok, who has been a long-time supporter, and he wrote us a story called A Crucible Chronicle. And it was more inspired by the idea of Crucible Eve rather than Christmas Eve. Crucible Eve, which of course we're now at the end of the World Championship. Let's put those blues to one side and let's think about a nice, good, feel-good story about Crucible Eve, because we were thinking back 18 days ago when we were all excited. We were looking to see if Dennis had brought presents and all of that.
We were young and hopeful, Joe. We were
young and hopeful. And we had no idea that ZHAO was going to win the World Championship. So anyway, this is called The Crucible Chronicle. I thought I'd read out his story.
I thought Judd was going to win it, just saying.
Yes. It's quite long, so strap yourself in.
I'm gonna go get my charger quickly then, because I don't want my laptop to die in the middle of this chat.
That's absolutely fine, Tom. I'll read out some people in the chat until you're ready. You go and do that, Tom. So Fionn Lynch says, has anyone else seen James Howard do snooker impressions on TikTok? They're brilliant. I'd like to know which snooker impressions he's doing. I hope he's not trying to copy my Dennis Taylor impressions. That would be awful. It would definitely adversely affect the snooker in the UK as a whole, I reckon. It's quite niche already. That would just kill it for mainstream. Yeah, I agree. Mr. Dog, the counties do stream their county championship matches for cricket. Snooker Fan TV will win 10 world titles. There you go. Best player I've ever seen. Best ball striker ever. I'm assuming you're talking about ZHAO XINTONG. Oh, yes, Steve Porter. We have the 5 days of the seniors on Channel 5. Of course, best of 13 in the final as well. So, or best of 15, whatever it is. So plenty of snooker there to enjoy. But yes, we
enjoy that snooker.
We are going to get into this story. Are you ready, Tom?
I'm ready. I just didn't want my laptop to die in the middle of it, because it would look like I'd be very rude and reading the story, and I'd just go. It would just disappear.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, Tom. Right, A Crucible Chronicle. So it was Friday the 16th of April, Crucible Eve 2027. And Barry was settling down for the evening in his penthouse suite in Riyadh. Earlier this afternoon, he'd just landed in his paradise, that is Saudi Arabia. And now at his hotel, he would relax. With all thoughts of the dreaded World Snooker Championship out of his head, he wanted nothing to do with it. He had washed his hands with Sheffield and the Crucible Theatre and couldn't stand the sight of it. Not at this time of year, not ever. So he got on his private jet and swanned off to the luxurious Riyadh.
Oh.
Mark
Williams. Like the sound of this guy.
Look at this. Mark Williams would be beginning his title defence in the morning of the Crucible Theatre after his incredible 18-17 victory over Judd Trump in the final last year. Barry, meanwhile, had come to Saudi Arabia to make his plans for the first Saudi Arabia World Championship next year. He had a meeting with various business people the following morning to discuss plans of building an all-singing, all-dancing 10,000 capacity snooker venue in Riyadh. It had been a long day, and so he was ready to settle down for the night with his daily bedtime tradition. He opened up his laptop and logged on to his beloved Matchroom.live account. He scrolled through the meaningless videos full of boring tournaments in the UK until he found his favourite video, and he was in his happy place, watching John Higgins's failed 167 attempt at the Riyadh Season Masters brought Barry Hearn great pleasure, and when he watched it each night, he smiled to himself, knowing that he'd narrowly avoided having to pay a player such a massive prize. What a great gimmick that was. He thought to himself. It made him so happy to know that players could be controlled like puppets, except for that pesky Mark Allen and that Sean Murphy who loved to have an opinion. There was just something about that maximum that Barry loved. He remembered feeling nervous that he would actually have to pay out such a large sum of money, but was so relieved when John missed that yellow. And to see the fans just walking in the crowd, well, that was the very definition of etiquette in snooker as far as Barry was concerned for the future of the sport. And so Barry drifted off to sleep, feeling very happy, especially knowing that he would have nothing to do with this year's World Championship. Suddenly, he fell into a trance. He looked in front of him and saw a gold bar, shaped like a nugget. The bar was glowing and burst into a gold dust to reveal Steve Davis, only he was completely gold. "Steve," Barry said, confused. "Is that you?" "Good evening, Barry." "Good evening, everybody." No, it didn't say good evening, everybody.
Oh,
he didn't say that. "Good evening, Barry," Steve said. Barry stared at his protege, shocked. "I come to you tonight as I feel that on behalf of all fans and players, your actions are very dishonourable to the sport. Leave it out, mate."
Is Steve Davis naked in this?
Oh, he's just gold. He possibly is naked. I don't know, Tom.
In my head, I thought he was naked and gold. I don't know if anyone else was thinking that. I have no idea.
This is some inspired writing, says Chris Lang. I agree. "Leave it out, mate," Barry said. "This is for the good of the game." "No, Barry," Steve said. "Look at all the great times we've had. Are you really going to let these precious moments slip away? Is this really going to be the last time the biggest tournament in our sport will be broadcast on the BBC? Is that really what you want?" "Steve, I really thought you would understand as an old mate," Barry moaned. "But I tell you what, you go crawling back to Sheffield and I'll stay here in luxury for 3 weeks and fight for our sport." "No, Barry, think again," warned the Nugget. "Tonight you will be greeted by 3 world champions, the ghost of snooker past, present, and yet to come, and they will show you the error of your ways. Get some sleep, Steve. You've had a long day. You're talking nonsense, mate." "Very well, Barry. See you on the other side." And with that, Steve vanished into gold dust.
Surprised Barry didn't tell him to put his clothes on, but fair enough.
Meanwhile, moments later, the speakers started playing music, a song that transported Barry all the way back to the 80s. But them long shots he never ever got. Why the old man boggles. But nowadays he pots a lot, "'cause I wear these goggles." Goggles. He looked up and couldn't believe his eyes. Was that Dennis Taylor singing Snooker Loopy? "Dennis? Snooker Loopy, nuts are we, me and him and them." "Den, show what we can do with a load of balls." And how did you? Dennis was in a world of his own. And then, "Screw back for the yellow, green, brown, blue, pink and black. Snooker Loopy, nuts are we, we're all Snooker Loopy, ba-bum-bum, ba-bum-bum." How do you know? "Good evening, Barry." "Good evening, Barry," Dennis greeted Barry. "Good evening, Hazel, and a very good evening to everybody at home." "Hazel?" Barry looks puzzled. Frantically looking around the room, but it was just him and Dennis alone. "I'm the ghost of snooker past, and I want to take you on a trip down memory lane." "What do?" Barry was visibly worried. Dennis came over and patted him on the head. "Don't worry, Barry. Everything is going to be okay. He assured the matchroom man. I want to take you back to a day you may not remember. And it was a long time ago, he said. He held Barry's hand and they flew through the night sky to the beautifully lit up Crucible Theatre. No! Barry screamed. Not this place. Please, Dennis. Barry, don't worry. All will be okay, Dennis said, leading Barry inside. Hang on, Barry said, as they walked inside into the foyer. This isn't how I remember the Crucible to be. Well, we've travelled back in time, you see, Barry, Dennis said, taking his glasses off to wipe them. I've brought you all the way back to 1985, the final night of the tournament. They walked into the arena and sat down on the front row, where there happened to be 2 seats available. That's you, Dennis, Barry said. And that's Steve. Both of you look so young. Well, Barry, like I said, this is an old memory of mine, and one you remember well too. And so they watched the conclusion of the match, with young Dennis Taylor eventually winning on the black. I don't really talk about this victory too much, Dennis began, and only save talking about it for desperate times like tonight. Sad day, I needed Steve to win, Barry said, but unfortunately for me, he came very close to winning the snooker crown, but he never got to put on his ginger nut because the black ball wouldn't go down. And what did you say to Steve afterwards? Dennis asked, trying to jog Barry's memory. Sod that ball, Barry began. And you know what? It helped me make my mind up. It was the birth of my matchroom empire. That's right, Dennis said. You see, I remember like it was yesterday. There was me, Steve, Tony, and then Terry and Willie, who I'm sure will be watching this year's World Championship from the heavens above. Barry watched Dennis get emotional as he reminisced. Wow, the matchroom Rob. It was a cracker. It brought a tear to Barry's eye to remember all the good times he'd had. The matchroom mob, Snooker Loopy. What a time the 80s were, he thought. Barry and Dennis began crying. Barry reminiscing the past, and Dennis devastated at all the memories that would be lost if it moved to Saudi Arabia. It tore Barry apart to see Dennis that sad, and no amount of trying to comfort him could get him to stop, and he cried until he passed out, leaving Barry alone in the arena in darkness.
Joe, can you quickly give us a quick impression of what that would be like, Dennis crying until he passed out?
No, you're all right. Panicking, Barry left the arena and went to the foyer of the Crucible. He looked around him and saw the Crucible was more modern than before, as though he'd been transported back to 2027. Good evening, Barry. He turned around and saw another familiar face, the reigning world champion Mark Williams. I am the ghost of Christmas present, he proclaimed.
Oh, this is a good voice.
Mark was all dressed in his outfit ready for his title defence, and he was holding his cue case in his left hand.
I thought you were going to say Mark was dressed just in his Betfred towel.
Mark, Barry said, really puzzled. Surely this wasn't happening to him, he thought. This didn't seem like Riyadh where he'd fallen asleep. Yes, Barry. And he said, I'm here to share a very important message with you. Don't try and preach me about keeping the World Championship in this dump, Mark, Barry went. I'm already making plans for Saudi Arabia next year. No, Barry, I want to show you something, he said. Touch my cue case. Barry nervously obliged, gently touching Mark's cue case. In the blink of an eye, they were magically transported to the practice room. Barry saw players working hard on the eve of the World Championship, ready for their matches on the opening day. Judd Trump was busy practicing with Jack Lazowski helping respot the balls for him. Hussein Vafai was busy working hard for his match with Williams tomorrow, and Mark Allen was working hard practicing his safety play and patience, trying to take 50 seconds on each shot. You see, Barry, everyone wants a piece of it, Mark began. They all want their moment of glory in this fabulous arena. Some want it for the first time after fighting for it for years like Mark. Some would love to pull off a miracle win here and shock the world like Hussein. And others like Judd want to experience the glory all over again. Barry looked Mark in the eye. Trust me, I know how great winning in this cauldron is. And you can ask your Steve too. I know, mate, but you've got to understand, they'd much rather the money in Saudi Arabia. Hey, Mark Williams called at Mark Allen. Crucible or Riyadh? Where would you rather become world champion? Crucible for me, Mark, he said, putting down his cue and leaning on the table. The history and everything, you know. I've played here all my life. I've seen other players win here. My fellow countrymen, Dennis and Alex. I'd love a piece of it to become part of Northern Ireland's history. Those words hit Barry hard, and he began to understand the magnitude of the Crucible to the players. Judd, same question, Crucible or Riyadh? Same here, Judd Trump said. I won here in 2019, and I'd love to do it again. There was something about playing in that final here that inspired me to play my very best against John, one of the true greats of our sport. Jack? I'd love to just reach the single table setup for a start, and have the chance to play in what the pinnacle of snooker has always been, the single table setup at the Crucible in the World Championship. John denied me in 2022, and I still have nightmares about it to this day, losing out in that decider. Hossein? Well,
hold on, can I just quickly say, even a fictional Trump and Lazowski are tedious. It's just like, even then I was just like, oh, fine, all right, guys, okay, move on to the next guy.
Hossein? Well, I'd have given my last drop of blood to play here, Hossein began. I beat Le Pei Fan in 2022 in a horrible qualifying match, and to win at the biggest stage of snooker, that is the Crucible, would be a dream. I know I said this room is like a garage, and that the arena smells bad, but as long as we invest money here, then history is still important. Thank you, Hossein, Mark Williams said. You see, Barry, it would mean a lot to all these guys to win. Wow, Barry said. I guess I never knew what it meant. Mark took Barry aside and held his hand, and suddenly they were transported to a dark room, maybe the basement of the Crucible, and the clock struck 1 o'clock. Another world title at the Crucible would mean everything for me too, Mark said, and now I have to sleep and get ready for my title defence. Good night, Barry, Mark said, disappearing into chalk dust. Good night, Mark, Barry said, holding out his hand, but Mark Williams had already vanished. Barry had a tear in his eye. Suddenly, the room began falling apart, and suddenly he was in the middle of a desert. The sun scored.
I think this is why WST don't get in touch with us, mate. I'll be honest.
Suddenly, the room began falling apart, and suddenly he was in the middle of a desert, the sun scorching in the sky. He tried walking, but the sand was so deep he struggled to walk through. It was so hot. Help! He screamed, help! Barry, a voice shouted from behind, and suddenly a song started playing. It was Drops of Jupiter. He turned around, and it was none other than the greatest of all time, Ronnie O'Sullivan, standing there. I am the ghost of snooker yet to come, he announced. Ronnie was dressed as an Arab, as though he was ready for the Saudi World Masters of Snooker. Jack Lazowski style, I guess. And he shaved off most of his hair. Barry was pretty scared looking at Ronnie. Ronnie, Barry said, where are we? We're in the land of your dreams, Ronnie said, laughing like a madman. In a desert? Barry asked, confused. Saudi Arabia, mate, Ronnie laughed, adjusting his glasses, seeming to enjoy the high life. What are we doing here? Barry asked. As they stood in the middle of the barren desert, Ronnie laughed. This right here, he laughed, is the perfect place for a venue for the World Championship. In the middle of the desert? Barry asked. You can't be serious, mate. Oh yeah, Ronnie said. Perfect, isn't it? We've got all this space. We can have as big a venue as we want, all singing, all dancing. But it's the middle of nowhere, Barry said, feeling drained from the heat. Yeah, but the money'll be good. But it's so hot here, Barry questioned. The tables won't even play properly. They'll be lovely, said Ronnie. In an arena like that, we can have air conditioning, and you can make it happen. You can pull a few strings, mate. No. It should stay at the Crucible, Barry began to panic. It's too hot here. The heat is draining me. Where can I get water from? The stinky Crucible, Ronnie chuckled. No way. Water? 100 miles to the next town to get some water. This is a desert, mate, not the ocean. Oh my God, screamed Barry, channeling his inner Matthew Selt. You gotta be kidding me. Nope. Welcome to Saudi Arabia, mate, laughed Ronnie. Barry turned round to see Judd Trump, Neil Robertson and David Hendon dressed as Arabs. He was shocked. What? Barry screamed, confused. Greetings, David said. We are here for the 2028 World Snooker Championship opening ceremony. What? No, Barry screamed. We can't have a World Championship here. It's too hot. The players will die of dehydration. Barry turned round to see an army of 100 players dressed as Arabs ready for the World Championship. No, this can't be happening. It's happening, Ronnie laughed. No, take me back to Sheffield, Barry said, as his last words before collapsing in dehydration. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, realising it was a dream. Thank God, Barry screamed. He checked his phone. He knew what day it was. Oh my God, he said to himself. It's Crucible Day. What am I doing here? And so it had dawned on Barry, and he took the first flight back to the UK and made his way to Sheffield. Day one was all done and dusted by that time, and Hossein Vafaei had come through against Mark Williams with a 10-8 victory. The next day was the Sunday, the second day of the tournament. Barry went to the Crucible to embrace the atmosphere, and on the Monday he went to speak to Sheffield City Council for plans to keep the World Championship in Sheffield. He begged and assured them that this was what he wanted, that Sheffield was the way forever, and they all lived happily ever after. Well, there you go, Tom.
Wow, I mean, Alok, that was fantastic.
It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, that is just amazing. That should be made into a feature movie.
Yeah, if Alok wants to, maybe get in touch with Banksy, I'm sure the two of them could secure the rights and do the animation and get it made into something beautiful. That was incredible.
It really was. I honestly, because I was just reading the whole time, I have no idea if anybody's still watching out there, but I thought that was great. I was engrossed in that story.
The reviews have come in, Joe. That was gloriously unhinged. So there we go. That's good.
Yeah, I guess that's what we want. That was class. There we go. I mean, viewer submissions to the Snooker Loopy podcast have honestly been the best thing that's happened to it. It really has. So do keep it coming. We've had some incredible submissions from all sorts of people in all sorts of formats. We've had songs, we've had pictures, we've had graphics, we've had stories now. It's just insane. So thank you so much for all of that. And thank you, Alok. That was a brilliant story. And actually, maybe that will happen. Who knows? I mean, it was scary how you said Mark Williams defending champion. Because that could have... Well, it wouldn't... I guess if he wins it next year, that's what it would be, wouldn't it? But already got a prediction in there for 18-17. Mark Williams versus Judd Trump next year.
There we are. Everyone get your bets in now. It's been predicted by Alok.
Barry being so sad he made Dennis upset was my favourite part.
I did enjoy Dennis crying so much that he fainted.
Yeah, Matt said it was fantastic, although now he has to go to bed with an image of naked golden Steve Davis in his mind. I don't know how to feel about that. Well, Matt,
Sweet dreams.
Having Mark Williams's ball cleaner on you, I'm sure you'll cope. But yeah, that was great. So thank you very much, Alec, for that. And yeah, I guess that brings us, Tom, to the end of another Crucible campaign. 17 days have gone by. We've pretty much done some sort of content for all of it. And I guess all that is left to say is a big thank you to everybody at home, and also thank you to you, Tom, for the last 2 weeks, being available and putting all the work in that you do, and thinking of nicknames and, keeping the conversation going, I guess, with it all, even through your illness last week. It's been amazing the last couple of weeks. And
it's nice. It just gives me another reason to look forward to the World Championship now. It's another part of the whole event that is another little sort of sprinkling of fun and magic on top, which is really lovely and really nice. And it's nice to always have new people tuning in, new people finding the podcast. And yeah, we'll be back again next year, I'm sure.
Yes, we will be. We'll be back for the daily roundups, but we've got much more planned in between now and then. We've obviously got decent bit of content coming out over the summer, and the season will be back around. Before you know it, we'll of course have our big review of the World Championship coming up over the next couple of days. We've got our Q School preview, and probably Q School review, and I guess we'll do a whole season roundup as well over the next couple of weeks. So there's plenty more content to come, and then the new season will be around before you know it. Roll on November and the UK Championship when the proper snooker season starts, as I call it.
As you and all the listeners have started calling it the proper season, I think. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. People are already saying that the seniors are on Wednesday. Like, how these other events like the seniors and Q School are so close to the end of the whole Crucible stuff. So yeah, we're not even going to get a massive break. We'll probably do episodes for seniors and Q School, then maybe have a little bit of a break, but we'll still be doing stuff over the summer, and there'll be different video ideas we have, and all sorts of nonsense, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And if you guys have any ideas, do get in touch. We've got the links down below. Snooker Loopy Podcast at gmail.com. Tweet us. All of these go out on Spotify as well. So if you're on the move and want to listen to us, there's now 71 episodes for you to enjoy. So please do enjoy them. There's a lot of funny stuff that we've done over the last couple of years, from Kentucky Fried Virgo to Jason Tart to Kellogg's Dennis Taylor to Stephen Hendry's Rubbish special. That was episode 3. Stephen Hendry's Rubbish was episode 3 of the Snooker Loopy podcast. So, yes, hopefully you will enjoy it all. Go back and view some of the older episodes if you are interested in some of our nonsense and trying to get over your Crucible blues, I guess. But yeah, we will see you very, very shortly. Any final words, Tom?
Just don't have nightmares, because that story at the end, I feel like people are gonna. Yeah, I'm so sorry for whatever you're gonna dream about. Joe read it, not me. Don't blame me. Blame Joe.
Alok wrote it, not me. So yeah.
Yeah, the Snooker Loopy podcast is not legally responsible for any nightmares you might have later about a golden Steve Davis or a crying Dennis Taylor.
Yeah, and with that being said, folks, we will be back with our big review of the World Championship in the next few days. So enjoy it and enjoy the seniors. See you later, everybody.